Okay, Jacinta, I think we better
Okay,
go.
I think we'll get ready to start. So thank you, welcome. Thank you so much for joining Safari Experts and Lindblad Expeditions this evening. My name is Jacinta McAvoy, Vice President of Sales here at Lindblad. I'm also joined by Tim LePage and our Antarctica specialist, Dr. Steve McLean. This evening, sorry, little technical difficulty here. This evening we'll be featuring Antarctica, South Georgia, and the Falkland Islands. And that is on January 25th, 2016. This is a departure that's being promoted by Safari Experts. But before we get started, and I introduce you to Tim and Steve, I just wanted to point out, if you lose your connection at any point, the video, please go back to the original email and click on the link provided. On the right-hand side of the screen, there's a box where you can type in your questions. We encourage you to type them in throughout the presentation, and we'll answer them at the end. I do apologize if at any time we can't get through all of the questions. However, any remaining questions, we'll send them to Tim, and of course, we'll provide the answers for you at the end of the presentation. So now I'd like to introduce you to Tim. I'm sure many of you know him, but Tim has traveled to Antarctica on the National Geographic Orion in 2013. So he'll bring first-hand knowledge of life aboard the ship, as well as his passion for this region of the world. And you'll also notice that he has a passion for color. Check out the pants. So Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you. So give you a chance to talk about your experience in Antarctica.
Thank you, Jacinta, and thanks everybody for taking the time to listen in. If you missed some of it, we'll be sending a recording of it a little bit later. Yeah, I thought that those pants were going to get those penguins really excited. However, they didn't take a blind bit of notice of me. So I guess that's they were just thinking stupid human. However, you know, as most of you know, I've done a lot of Africa, and I believe that's the ultimate place. But I've got to tell you that the reason I'm going back for the second time in less than 24 months is that I found this just a spiritual journey. And, you know, it takes different things to grab different people, but it's pretty hard not to be absolutely dumbstruck by this incredible world. The great southern oceans are the engine room of the world. All these nutrients boiling up and supplying the rest of the oceans of the world. And this is really the full kahuna. This boat is the most luxurious boat that goes down there. And it does it in great style. And this is one of the smaller cabins. This is one of the Category 3 cabins. And at the moment, we only have 10 cabins left, which I'm holding. So if you are interested, we need to get on and allocate those cabins. The boat's already sold out with a waiting list apart from these cabins. So this is life on board, and as you can see there, I am in the old jacuzzi enjoying a little bit of beer and company, but it's a way of keeping warm. But going out, and the great thrill of the journey down there is the Southern Ocean, and seeing the incredible amount of seabirds, which Steve will refer to in a little bit. And once you get down in amongst the ice, every minute is an extravaganza for photographers, and the light is extraordinary. So you can keep fit on board. There's actually a gym on board, and there's a deck for some running if you don't mind going up and down, you know, 10 or a couple of feet as you run down the deck in the middle of out in the middle of the ocean. And the food is quite exceptional. If I tell you that on the 20th day we had lettuce that was as fresh as the lettuce on day 1, that is the fact. And I mean, again, that just is one example of just how extraordinary the cuisine and the attention to detail is from the whole ship and the whole crew. Yeah. And so, you know, there's plenty of space to get away. There are only 102 passengers if the boat is full, which it may not be absolutely full because there'll be a couple of single cabins. But there's always plenty of space to connect with people and get away from people. I think that's a really important part of it. And there's always a crew on hand to help. So that's really about the boat, and I hope that some of you will come along and join us on this fantastic experience. Jacinta, if you'd like to just tell us a little bit about the background of Lindblad.
Okay, well, thank you, Tim. I too have done this trip, and I can honestly say it's one of the best trips that I've ever taken. I still get goosebumps when I think about it. So before I turn you over to Steve, I would like to talk a little bit about Lindblad expeditions, and this is mainly for people who are not familiar with Lindblad. We've been exploring Antarctica for decades, and we have over 50 years of expedition travel experience around the world. Lars Erik Lindblad, who you see here in the photograph, was a pioneer in expedition travel, bringing the first non-scientific travelers to Antarctica in 1966. So for about 14 years, the only company that was exploring this area was Lindblad Expeditions. He was also the first to lead expeditions into the Galapagos Islands and the Seychelles Islands, and also Arctic Svalbard, probably about a year or two later. Today, we're led by his son, Sven Lindblad, and of course, he's very proud to carry on the Lindblad legacy, which means a strong dedication to the environment, responsible tourism, and most importantly, to navigate some of these destinations that we go to, especially the Antarctica and the Arctic, in really safe way. So we have the best ships, the best equipment on board, fully stabilized vessels. So it's very exciting to be able to explore with such great technology these days. In 2004, we joined a partnership with National Geographic. So I can't believe it's 10 years ago already. This is the perfect union for two organizations who collectively have over 175 years of exploration. Both of us care deeply about inspiring people to explore and care about the planet, and it offers unparalleled benefits to our guests, enabling them to travel with some of the world's top photographers and explorers and researchers around the world. So literally, when you're traveling with Lindblad National Geographic, you're traveling with photographers that you see in the pages of National Geographic magazine. So it's very exciting. And of course, our team. I can't say enough about our expedition team. They're the most knowledgeable, enthusiastic, and will absolutely make your voyage. We have a robust team in the Antarctica especially, with 35 years or more of experience going down to that region of the world. We have a variety of expertise, marine biologists, botanists, penguin and polar exploration, and more. We also maintain a staff guest ratio of 1 to 10 or better. This means that learning, more personal attention, more flexibility in offering kayaking, hiking, and zodiac exploration so that you can choose. So in other words, you're not locked into a certain set of activities. And a lot of those activities are actually operating at the same time. So you can choose to go kayaking, or you can take a zodiac ride, or you can simply just hike on the glacier if that opportunity is available. And I can assure you that we have the best team on Earth. 75 years or more of exploration between the two organizations. As I mentioned, we'll be joined today by Dr. Steve McLean. Steve is a veteran Lindblad National Geographic naturalist with years of experience in the ice and a real passion for polar landscapes and creatures. Steve has a PhD in zoology and was on the faculty of the University of Fairbanks, Alaska for 26 years and has traveled to Antarctica with Lindblad National Geographic over 55 times. Good evening, Steve, and thank you for being here from Alaska.
Yep, good evening, Jacinta, Tim, and all of you who are out there. Glad you could join us today. We can skip right over that one.
Okay.
I hope we can skip right over that one. There we go. So the question being raised to all of you today is, why would you go to Antarctica? It's a little challenging to articulate an answer after the fact. You will come back a changed person. You will have a view of the world and the wildness of the world that you didn't have before you went. I've heard people say one of the most exciting places you will visit. I would say that for Antarctica, but when you put South Georgia and the Falkland Islands in together, we can drop the one of. It probably is, in my view, about the most spectacular place you can visit. It's a rarely visited place. Tourism is increasing in Antarctica, but still a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the travelers in this world have been able to see Antarctica. For many of you, this will be your seventh continent, and I can guarantee you that we will place your feet on the Antarctic continent itself. In principle, you could walk from your landing all the way to the South Pole. We do recommend that you not try that. The area that we primarily visit is this piece that you see sticking up towards 10 o'clock. This is the Antarctic Peninsula. It is the warmest part of Antarctica, and it is by far the most accessible part of Antarctica. So here you see the Antarctic Peninsula above at the very top of the image, the South Shetland Islands. On the right-hand side of the image, that is the eastern side of the Antarctic Peninsula, is the Weddell Sea, so this is the area in which we will concentrate our activities. And if I could, there we go. So why does one go to Antarctica? First of all, it gives you a feeling of being alone in a wild part of the world. It is, the remoteness of it is part of the attraction, but it's an area, Tim mentioned the productivity caused by the upwelling of nutrients. Well, this makes it one of the most wildlife-rich areas you would visit. It's also an area where the wildlife are incredibly unafraid. If any of you have ever been to the Galapagos, it's famous for its unafraid, I don't like the word tame, but certainly unafraid, undisturbed wildlife. And that's something that the Galapagos and Antarctica have in common. You can actually sit down on the periphery of a penguin colony and let the penguins come up and approach you. And they might even come up and explore your bootlaces. It is an area during the summer, and of course we are there in the Antarctic summer. We have long hours of daylight. Believe me, January, February is a wonderful time to be away from the darkness of Alaska or the darkness of the places many of you live, taking in the light of Antarctica. This is a very special year because it was 100 years ago in 1915 that Ernest Henry Shackleton's endurance expedition departed. So this is the centennial year, and this will provide a special focus for a trip this year. We certainly will be, that's one of the reasons why a trip that includes South Georgia is so valuable, because of course Shackleton's voyage both began and ended at South Georgia. We'll see that in just a moment. So I mentioned the wildlife, and here's an example. This is an Adelie penguin, and penguins have the right-of-way, so the people stop and allow the penguin to pass by over the trail, and then we continue on our exploration. Now you see these images, and just to mention, we have a National Geographic photographer aboard, but I want you to know that these are the images that you yourself would be able to take. We'll all have these opportunities. We do have the National Geographic photographer, but I want to emphasize that the role of that person is not to take their own photographs to appear in the magazine. The role is to take their expertise, their training, their experience, and bring it to your photography to try to improve your photography. And this applies whether you are using a high-end single lens reflex with a mighty long lens, or whether you have a simple, they're often called point and shoots. We prefer to call them aim and create. The smaller cameras, everybody can learn to take better pictures, and that's why the National Geographic photographer is there. And this is the kind of picture that I would hope you would return with. These are incidentally chinstrap penguins off of Bailey Head in Deception Island. Or here, this would be a photograph taken on a Zodiac cruise, the small rubber inflatable boats that are kind of the key to expedition travel. So here we have a group of Adelie penguins standing on a piece of sea ice, and the Zodiac is pulled in close for a close-up shot. We'll look at some more of the penguins in a minute. Marine life includes seals. There's a leopard seal up in the upper left, an elephant seal, the upper right, and a Weddell seal down in the lower left. And again, you're generally able to get quite close for excellent views and photographic opportunities with the marine wildlife. Sometimes you will see them from the Zodiac cruise, but sometimes you might be out in a kayak paddling yourself. Cue the ominous music here. This is the infamous leopard seal, a major predator at penguin colonies. Antarctica is a place with whales. Whales go up into the tropical area. I'm thinking predominantly of humpback whales now. Go into the tropical areas in the Antarctic winter where they engage in their breeding activities and they give birth, but they come down to the food-rich waters of Antarctica during the summer. It was very difficult to get this picture of the whale actually jumping over the ship. No, it really didn't jump over the ship. But this is an area off of Booth Island. The humpback whale is one of the most acrobatic of the whales, and really a great thing. In January, February, a wonderful time to see humpback whales taking advantage of the marine resources of Antarctica. There we go. Ooh, more ominous music. I actually was here at this particular moment. These are Antarctic killer whales, and the seal on the ice there is a leopard seal. We had gone out on a Zodiac cruise, pushed into the ice, and there we came upon this scene. Obviously, the killer whales were checking out. We call this behavior spy hopping, where they bring the upper part of their body out and have a look around. You might be happy to know that the orca decided, nah, leopard seal, they'd rather go off and look for Weddell seals, so they went away and left the leopard seal uneaten on the ice. But it was a very, very breathtaking moment. Now we often say you come to Antarctica for the wildlife, for the penguins, for the seals, for the whales. What grabs you in Antarctica is the ice, the diversity of ice. This is the face of a glacier. We have glacial ice, we have sea ice, we have icebergs and smaller pieces of ice, myriad forms, functions. It's just absolutely, you can't stop taking pictures of the ice. When you get back, you can bore your friends and family with your hundreds of pictures of the ice. And I know people who have come back again and again. We have people that have taken 6, 7, 8 or more trips to Antarctica, and I can assure you it is the beauty of the ice that is, as much as anything, what keeps bringing people back and what keeps bringing me back. Let's talk about what you would do on a day in Antarctica. First of all, we leave from Ushuaia, Argentina, and the first thing we do is head out into the Southern Ocean. So I'm going to deal with this one right up front. Many of you have heard about the Southern Ocean, Drake's Passage, one of the most turbulent pieces of ocean in the world. And it is an exciting bit of the ocean. It is not always rough. It is not always turbulent. I would say half the time the crossing is quite comfortable with very little noticeable motion. And it may be only maybe one time out of 10 that we will get, let me say, a somewhat more exciting passage. Modern medical science is able to do a great deal to take away the discomfort that some of you might associate with turbulent oceans. And if you do happen to get, again, it might be one passage out of 10. If you do happen to, and we can't tell you in advance which passage that will be. Otherwise, everybody would call the booking office and say, I want to book a trip to Antarctica when the ocean is going to be smooth. Well, we can't tell you that in advance. You go and you find out what it's going to be like when you're there. If you're particularly susceptible, you might want to spend a fair amount of that one-day crossing in your cabin, lying on your bunk. But the most important thing is when you get there, it's worth it. I assure you, it is entirely worth it. And once you see what Antarctica, South Georgia has to offer, you will quickly forget any discomfort. This is the kind of behavior that Antarctica elicits. This is, yes, you can see this person. This is what we call the polar plunge. We will generally offer the opportunity. It is not a requirement. It is an option. But you'll be amazed at how many people take us up on the option. This is the kind of almost giddy behavior that a trip to Antarctica brings out in you. It takes about a day to get from Antarctica over to the Falkland Islands. Another day to get, we'll make some landings in the Falkland Islands. Another day to get over to South Georgia, where we'll have a number of days to visit around South Georgia. And then finally, another day, and we were down in Antarctic proper. So what do? Well, we offer a whole diversity of activities. The most important thing I want to stress is that this is an expedition and not a cruise. We don't use the cruise word. Cruise has a fixed itinerary. You know where you're going to be Tuesday morning. On this voyage, on this expedition, you are trusting the experience of the expedition leader, of the captain, to find the best way to maximize the time that you have to spend. Before the season begins, we have booked a number of sites. We call this the intentions, but it's rare that we would actually do exactly what was booked, and no two trips are going to be the same. If conditions allow us to get into the Weddell Sea, we're going to seize that moment and go into the Weddell Sea and perhaps not go to some other landings. If the icy conditions in the Weddell Sea don't allow us, then we will go other places. Trust us, we will give you the best possible experience that can be done in the time available. South Georgia, one of the most amazing places. This is a colony of king penguins. King penguins are closely related to the emperor penguins, but king penguins are a subantarctic penguin, so we'll find them in South Georgia, and we'll find them in colonies of 100,000 or more pairs on the beach. King penguins have I'd almost say bizarre breeding system where it takes more than a year for them to go through the entire breeding cycle. That means there are young to be seen at any time of the year. But look at this enormous colony of king penguins, glaciers coming down from the interior of South Georgia Island, a subantarctic island. You will not see the green vegetation in Antarctica that you see here in South Georgia. One of the things I love most about South Georgia are the elephant seals. And here are a couple of bull elephant seals sparring for territory, space on a beach. And with that space on the beach comes the right to breed with the female elephant seals that are contained within their territory. So it's really a remarkable sound. The sounds, the bellowing and belching. South Georgia is also the place where Shackleton began his endurance expedition. It's also the place where he finished his endurance expedition. And finally, it is a place where Ernest Henry Shackleton is buried. On a later, his last expedition aboard a ship called the Quest, right there on the right-hand side and the far side of this cove is Prince Edward Point, and that is where Shackleton suffered a large heart attack and perished. On the left-hand side of the illustration, you see the whaling station at Geographic. In that white penned-in area is the whaler's graveyard, and there on the left, lower left of the image is the grave of Ernest Henry Shackleton. From those of you who know your Shackleton story, you know about his second-in-command, Frank Wild, and as of a few years ago, the ashes of Frank Wild were found in South Africa and were brought to the whaler's graveyard in Geographic and buried next to the boss. So Frank Wild and Ernest Shackleton are now buried, and we will pay a visit to pay our respects to Shackleton. Here we have some of the wildlife in the Falkland Islands, another remarkable place, really more south temperate than true Antarctic. To the left, perhaps my favorite penguin, the rockhopper penguin. They are so serious. They take themselves very seriously, I assure you, nesting amongst the tussock, the blue-eyed shag or Antarctic shag, and there on the bottom, where else can you stand 15 feet from a black-browed albatross on the nest? So it is an incredible place for wildlife and a place where we stop on our way between Ushuaia and South Georgia. This is the Falkland Islands, unlike South Georgia and Antarctica, does have a native, if you will, human population. They are people who have moved from the British Isles. They were basically sheep farmers. So there is a community of some 1,500 people at Stanley, the capital of the Falkland Islands. And believe me, it is almost like being in Edwardsian England. They are totally British to the core. It's a fun place to visit. Okay, zodiacs. These are some of you who have been to Galapagos may know them as pangas. We call them zodiacs. They are black rubber inflatables with 60 horsepower engines in the back. They're really the key to expedition travel. They're what enable us to travel from our ship to make our landings, but they're also wonderful craft to cruise about, cruise around the ice, cruise around the wildlife. Yes, if you go back one, have a look at that. Can you go back one for me, Jacinta? There we go. That actually is a humpback whale there. It's long, the white objects in the water, it's long pectoral fins, and it was coming up right up next to this zodiac to pay a visit. I can't promise that's going to happen to every zodiac. I can't promise that that's going to happen on every trip, but that's the sort of thing that happens, the sort of things the zodiacs allow us to do. So here we have them making a landing on South Georgia. You'll see the glacier tumbling down behind. You'll see the colony of king penguins, and the zodiac is coming out. Yes, let's get over this right away. You do need your rubber boots. Rubber boots are absolutely essential because the people on this zodiac are going to be swinging their legs over the side of the zodiac, stepping into a few inches of water and walking ashore. So rubber boots and zodiacs, both rubber now that I think about it, are two keys. Another bit of rubberized canvas. Some years ago, Sven Lindblad had the idea of offering kayaking to our guests. We were a little leery, dubious about this, but Sven insisted that we think seriously and give it a try, and it's worked out marvelously. This is the one time. These are two-person kayaks. There are 24 double kayaks on Orion, so you can travel with your traveling companion, all the while remembering that your voices carry far over the ocean, so be careful what you say. But it's a wonderful place to go where you want. You're off on your own within constraints of safety. We'll set limits and say, off you go. And you can go where you want. You can photograph. You can simply sit and cruise. It's a wonderful experience. And think of the joy of telling your friends and relatives that, yes, we did go kayaking in Antarctica. Several years ago, we added an undersea program. We have an undersea specialist aboard, and that person brings the undersea environment aboard the ship. And he does it several ways, either with scuba and a video camera to go down and film what is under the water. Now, many people will think, gosh, it's cold and miserable. There can't be anything alive under there. It is so much the contrary. The undersea environment in Antarctica absolutely teems with life. What you see in the upper left, though, is not a diver with scuba, but it's what we call a remotely operated vehicle, or an ROV, which enables us to go down deeper than a diver and scuba could do. And again, the undersea specialist is up above the water, tethered to the ROV, driving it as you will with a little joystick going around. Everything is being filmed. Bring it back aboard the ship, edit the footage, and that evening at recap, I'll talk about that in just a moment, you will be able to see the footage that was taken on your very trip. I want to emphasize this will always be footage taken on your trip, not the best of the underwater world, not what was seen on other trips. You will be seeing what was taken on your trip. And sometimes we can send the ROV down and actually have what we call a live feed. So you're sitting up in the lounge with a cocktail and a hors d'oeuvre while you're actually looking at what is underneath the keel, perhaps 400, 500, 600 feet down, if you will, at that very moment. So a number of ways to bring the undersea world to your attention, and it's been wildly successful. Another new program which has come in, we actually started the program of photographic experts even just as we were initiating our relationship with National Geographic. But in addition to the National Geographic photographer, we have a number of Lindblad naturalists who are trained photo instructors. And again, their job is to help you take the best photographs that you possibly can and give you tips, guidance, techniques that you can take away to other places. Another new program that's been wildly successful, at the end of each voyage, we like to assemble your pictures into a slideshow, and on the last evening of the trip, you'll be able to see your own pictures and the pictures taken by your fellow guests up on the screen while we're having cocktails in the final evening. So it's been wildly successful. We will also take that slideshow and make it available to you to take home. So here's a day in Antarctica, sliding down on the snow in a moment of exhilaration, paddling a kayak up to a Weddell seal, sleeping on the ice, walking over the sea ice, which we can commonly still do on shore-fast ice in January, having a close encounter with an Adelie penguin. Here again, it is the emphasis is on flexibility. Don't expect a fixed itinerary. You don't want to carry your itinerary around and say, well, wait a minute, this is Tuesday, we're supposed to be there. We will kayak when conditions are right. So we won't be able to tell you when we're going to kayak. What we will tell you is we're going to be looking for the right occasion, when the wind is down, when the conditions are good, and if it isn't a good day for kayaking, we'll go and find something else to do, and if it isn't the best of conditions where we were planning to be, we'll go find somewhere else to be. So, as I say, no days are alike. One of the great funs is being on the ship while we push through the ice. I can't promise how far south we will go. It depends on what the ice conditions like and how many other things there are going to be. But I can pretty much promise you that we will push our ship into the ice, and you will have the experience of pushing the ship through the ice. At the end of each day, we gather up in the lounge for what we call the evening recap. This is a chance for you to share your experiences with your fellow guests, but also it's a time for the naturalists to add interpretation, talking about some of the things we saw. So if we had a good day with humpback whales, we might be telling you something about the biology of humpback whales, and particularly Antarctic humpback whales. We have another new program. We have what we call a video chronicler. This is a professional videographer who will shoot and edit your voyage. Again, I want to emphasize, this is your voyage. This is not the best of. We're not assembling shots from various voyages. This will be a video of your very voyage, and it will be offered to you for sale at the end of the trip for you to take home and share with your friends. So what can I say? It's an experience that's going to change your life. Here the ship is pushed into the ice. You're going to come away exhilarated. You're going to come away knowing about Antarctica, becoming what we call an ambassador for Antarctica. Suddenly, this part of the world will be personal to you. We think that's one of the main advantages to taking tourists to Antarctica, because they come back now personalizing Antarctica. Now, there you are in the Southern Hemisphere, and we will offer what we call a post-voyage extension. This is an option if you wish to experience more of the Southern Hemisphere. If you're not likely to be coming down to South America in the near future, you might want to consider taking this opportunity to visit Easter Island. What we will do at the end of the voyage, with those who have chosen to do so, we will fly to Santiago, Chile, spend a night, and then fly out to Easter Island. And you are, I'm sure, familiar of the moai, the stone figures made by prehistoric Polynesians earlier. We will be escorted by Easter Island archaeologists who are very much involved in research, in preservation, protecting their environment, and expressing their love for Easter Island to visitors. So the Easter Island extension is something you would want to consider. It's another kind of life-changing experience. It's another place where Lars Erik Lindblad was the first to take guests, and it's a very powerful experience, and I would recommend you think most seriously about it. If you don't have the time or the inclination to do both, this is an option, not an integral part of the voyage.
Steve, thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful and great first-hand information. So before we take some questions, I just wanted to note that traveling with Lindblad, you can pretty much travel without $1 in your pocket. That's what our guests have told us. We offer almost everything is included. The only thing that's not included is the alcohol and tip. So we will take some questions now. If anybody has, let me just see how many people do we have here. Oh, we have quite a few. Questions. Hold on. Lots of questions.
Jacinta, could I make a little
Sure.
comment? In a lot of the background of these slides, you were seeing not the Orion, which we will be on, but the National Geographic Explorer, which is also runs on a similar route, but it is a lot bigger. It has nearly half as many people again. So the ship that you saw in the early slides was the Orion that we'll be on.
Okay, so the first question is, how cold will it be in January? And is there any guarantee to see polar bears? You want to take that one?
Can I take the second one first? I can guarantee you will not see polar bears. Polar bears occur only in the Arctic, not in the Antarctic. So, no, you will not see polar bears. I'd love to take you and show you polar bears, but you'd have to come into Svalbard or the Canadian Arctic to accomplish that. How cold will it be in January? I would say the low temperatures are around the freezing point, but by January the high temperatures can be getting up into the low 40s. But let me stress that your comfort level on an Antarctic voyage is not set by the temperature, it's set by the wind. So if it is in the low 30s Fahrenheit, and the wind is calm, you'll be dropping layers. I've actually been in a t-shirt. If the temperature is 40 degrees and the wind is blowing, you're going to want to be wearing your hat, your gloves, your fleece, your parka. So it can be cold to the feel, but that's entirely a function of the wind.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. The next question is, could there be weather deterrents that could lead to bad sea danger on the boat?
My question?
Yes.
It's I mean, there are ships that have had difficulties in the past, and that has made the press. But our ships are very much ice strengthened. It has the highest ice class available. It has extra layers of steel around the waterline. They are fully stabilized. They are as safe as could be. I've been back, as I think Jacinta mentioned, over 50 times, and I have no fear whatsoever of any difficult conditions. No, not at all.
Okay. The next question is, will we see emperor penguins?
Whoa. Maybe. I would say we see emperor penguins breed far down in the Antarctic, and they breed in the winter. Will we see them? I could never answer that question, yes. Might we see them? I can easily answer that question, yes. You might see them. It is far from a guarantee. By January, I would say we are going to be looking very much for them. If ice conditions allow us to go into the Weddell Sea, our chances of seeing them are improved, but I would say it's about a 50-50.
Okay, and we'll take the last questions. There are a few more questions, but we'll address those separately in an email. So we'll pass them along to Tim with the answers to the questions, and he'll communicate with you if we haven't. So I do apologize that we can't get to all of them this evening. But our last one, is there a doctor on board?
Easy one. Yes, there is a doctor on board.
Okay, fantastic. And then last but not least, check luggage on the charter flights. That was another question. Yes, we are allowed one checked bag, no more than 50 pounds per person. And you can also carry on 12 pounds in addition to the checked luggage. So that concludes our webinar for this evening. Tim, do you have any parting words that you would like to say before we
Just thank you so much thanks for coming, and I must say I'm so excited. I can't wait to get there again. So come and join us.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for attending this evening, and thank you, and have a great evening.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Good night, all.
Good night.